Welcome to the 12th episode of Rivanna Review, a program of stories, features, and book reviews. My name is Robert Boucheron. I will be your host for this special program of news from Habsburg. The print magazine Rivanna Review is published 4 times a year in Charlottesville, Virginia, on the Rivanna River. Contributors live all over the world, and they write about places far and wide. The magazine is available in bookstores on the Main Street Mall in Charlottesville and other bookstores in Virginia. You can order a copy or a subscription from the website rivannareview.com. Jeremiah Gorm founded the Weekly Vindicator in Habsburg, Virginia in 1888 to cover people, events, and things that matter, as the masthead proclaimed. In the hotly contested presidential election that year, Virginia was evenly divided. Gorm reported on flagrant voter fraud in New York and Indiana, but his readers had moved on. Over a century later, Walter Nichols is the editor and publisher. A veteran of small-town newspapers, he calls himself a dying breed, a shoe-leather reporter. A rumpled, middle-aged man, he dresses the part in fedora, suspenders, and brogues. He writes much of the copy, does the layout, and sells advertising. At board and council meetings, political rallies, funerals, and anywhere 2 or 3 are gathered together, he is a familiar figure, notebook and pencil at the ready. Jimmy Kidd is the cub reporter and photographer. Louisa Abernethy Jones writes the lifestyle column called Tittle Tattle. National politics gave way to local concerns. The weekly newspaper settled into routine of farm prices, school athletics, social notes, and natural disasters. It prints offbeat stories from wire services and letters to the editor, which arrive in a steady stream. The most popular feature is the obituaries page. Here are some recent items from the Vindicator, reported exactly as they happened. Lost cat. On Thursday, while a pizza delivery person stood at the open door of an apartment at the Sylvan Arms, a small furry animal dashed downstairs and vanished into the night. Rita Flange is concerned. Over the roar of an automatic dishwasher and audience cheers on a television game show, she had this to say: Callie is a mature female calico cat, affectionate but skittish. She has lived indoors all her life, which is about 10 years, and is probably frightened. So if you see her, please don't shout and rush toward her with outstretched arms as if you are going to grab her. Instead, offer her a treat in the palm of your hand and hold still for a full minute. She might sit and stare at you. If that happens, try turning away and looking over your shoulder to arouse interest. She loves that game. She might sneak up on you from behind and pounce. Mrs. Flange raises her hands to demonstrate. Callie has had all her shots and is spayed, but she has claws, so watch out. She is well-fed, finicky about dry food, and very good about using the litter box. She is on medication, which means her behavior might deteriorate as the pills wear off. She is very quiet, and the calico acts like camouflage. She can lie on the carpet right under your nose and be invisible. We miss Callie terribly. If you find her or catch a glimpse, please call or text us. That furball, rumbles a male voice from within. You can keep it. Flange pretends he doesn't care if we never see Callie again, but don't you believe it. He has a funny sense of humor that he uses to mask his true feelings. Callie's toys and bowl and plush bed are all waiting for her to return safe and sound to a home where she is loved. She was probably curious about the mysterious place outside the door. Now that she's had her adventure, she will remember us fondly and want to tell us all about it. Gender barrier. Vito Plunkett of Vito's Barbershop on Main Street recently hired an assistant, a young stylist whose previous experience was in a beauty salon. A graduate of Habsburg High School and the Blue Ridge Academy of Hair, Amber Gates is trained in all aspects of hair cutting, beard trimming, and shaving, as well as advanced techniques of coloring, waving, and hairpiece fitting. She is 24 years old, single, and unapologetically female. I can't help it, she says. I was born this way. Not all of Vito's regular customers are happy with the new addition to the staff. Grumbling was audible on the street among a group of older men with gray hair thinning or none at all on top. When they asked if they were shy of a lady barber, they vigorously denied the possibility and questioned the existence of such a person. "Ain't natural," said one. "If it's not against the law, it should be," said another. "Wouldn't trust her with anything sharp near my neck," said a third. A man dressed in farm clothes and boots entered the shop. Shaggy locks hung over his ears. He caught sight of Amber standing beside her vacant barber chair. He stopped abruptly and, without taking off his ball cap or commenting on the weather, turned on his heel and stalked out. Denny Hammer, a retired welder who wears his thick gray hair in a brush cut, watched from a row of vinyl chairs along the wall. "What's he afraid of?" Hammer asked. "Never saw him before, no idea who he is, probably wandered in from out of town. I'm waiting on Vito because I'm a creature of habit, and Vito has been cutting my hair for 40-plus years. As far as I'm concerned, he can keep on until one of us drops dead." Customer loyalty is good, Vito says, but change is inevitable. There aren't enough males who want to go into barbering. Those who train and qualify in the state exam tend to be flighty. I hire a man, break him in, and introduce the young blade to my clientele. Within a few months, he's gone to greener pastures. Amber says, "I promise to Vito stay as long as he wants me." Can she adapt to her new setting? "I'm a talkative person, and I'm interested in all kinds of subjects, but Vito explained the difference between a salon and a barbershop. Not all men want to have a social interaction while getting their hair cut. If they want to watch sports on TV or read a magazine or stare at their feet, that's fine with me, as long as they keep their head still." Lapse in service. People like to complain about the mail, but during the past year they had good reason. Home delivery was irregular. Letters languished for a month or more in some remote storage facility. A visit to the post office meant waiting in line for long minutes, only to be told your package was too heavy or badly wrapped or addressed to a place that did not exist. Kyle, a postal patron who did not wish to give their last name, recently unloaded. "A whole week would pass with no mail, and then it would come in a bunch mangled and torn. I subscribed to a lot of magazines. By the time an issue made it to my box, it was out of date, and the cover looked like it was run over by a truck. Credit cards and utilities charged me late fees because they did not receive payment. I always pay my bills on time. So I made a phone call and I talked to a person who was probably wearing a headset in some vast windowless warren of cubicles in Mumbai or Kolkata. I said I never received a bill. Sanjay was polite and sorry for any inconvenience, but the automated billing system apparently does not take into account a flawless payment record, not to mention an excellent credit rating." Kyle confides in a hushed tone. "Now, I'm not a nutcase who believes in conspiracy theories, but I heard a rumor the mail was deliberately held up. One of the political parties, I won't say which, hates voting by mail, so they trashed the one government service we all love and rely on in a last-ditch effort to delay counting ballots." Terry Stamp, the manager of the Habsburg post office, admits to a lapse in service, which she calls entirely regrettable. Citing the ban on federal civil servants commenting on or taking part in politics, she declines to go into particulars. Guardedly, she says, "The United States Postal Service is proud of its long tradition, and we continue to upgrade the products and services we offer to the public. It is true we had a backlog, but that has been cleared. Thanks to intervention by elected officials, we were able to hire more staff and reinstate normal routes and schedules. Remember, we are at the mercy of federal funding, and demand for mail services chronically exceeds the budget. I'm not making excuses, just stating the facts. If anyone has a grievance, I encourage them to write a letter to their congressperson." Sweet ride. At a recent meeting of the Quinton County School Board, a parent lodged a complaint against a bus driver. Karen Mountjoy, who lives on Azimuth Lane, stood to address the board. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am a stay-at-home mom with a darling 6-year-old daughter, Kimberly, who is in the 1st grade. Every afternoon, I arrange my household chores so I can go meet the school bus when it drops off the children. The street where we live is perfectly safe, but little children easily get distracted and they don't always walk straight home from the bus stop. I feel it is prudent to exercise parental oversight during the formative years." One day, as Kimberly stepped down from the bus, she didn't shout, "Hello, Mommy," with a big smile, the way she normally does. She had a preoccupied look on her face. I wondered if another child bullied her or she was thinking about an interesting fact she learned in school. Then I saw her jaw working like she had something in her mouth. I watched for a pink bubble, but nothing. I took Kimberly's hand in mine, and she didn't say a word. We walked home, and instead of prattling the whole way, she was deathly quiet. I couldn't stand it, so I kneeled and pried her lips apart. Lo and behold, my little girl's teeth were stuck together with caramel. It turns out the bus driver had a problem with noise, which children have a tendency to make. He handed out candy like hush money. Mrs. Mountjoy resumed, "Now, I provide a healthy diet, and I want Kimberly to get in the habit of eating fruit and nuts, even trail mix, instead of artificial snacks loaded with sugar and fat. I am not a radical nutrition freak, nor am I an overly protective mother who warns her innocent child against taking candy from strangers. I do question the practice of bribery." The board learned that other parents had dietary concerns, and sugar is high on the list. The school lunch program has come under fire for allegedly serving fast food, not enough fresh, and too much canned and processed junk. Lonnie Wood was the bus driver with the bag of candy slung beside the steering wheel. An older man, rather heavy, with a sweet tooth himself. Mr. Wood was present. He exchanged places with Mrs. Mountjoy. "I drove a semi for nigh on 30 years. Alone in the truck cab, I used to listen to CB radio or a talking book. A heart condition forced me to cut back my hours. I took this part-time job with the county, but a shipload of boxes is not the same as a busload of screaming kids. You can imagine the stress." The board suggested earplugs to deaden the noise. They noted that bus drivers are in short supply, and Mr. Wood has an excellent record on the road. They issued an admonishment, which carries no financial penalty and no change in bus routes. Mrs. Mountjoy compared this action to a slap on the wrist. Perhaps in jest, a board member muttered, "It sounds to me like a sweet ride." Heat wave. August is traditionally hot in Habsburg. Thermometers soar into the 90s, and humidity makes the air feel thick like a wet blanket. Flowers wilt, dogs pant, and birds disappear. The weather forecast is ominous and monotonous, day after day of pitiless sun, with heat index that flirts with 3 digits. When it rains, says Vernita Swank, it comes down all at once in a storm of thunder and lightning. Then the sun returns and it's just as hot as before. A recent heat wave made everyone grumble as if in outrage at a personal affront. Streets were deserted at midday as people sought shade and shelter from the heat. They ventured out at sunset to walk and breathe and greet one another with wan gestures. I felt like a prisoner in my own house, says Irene Hammer, who admits she is fortunate to have air conditioning. Southern women don't sweat, Blair Wolfram explains. We glisten. That's why it's so important to drink plenty of water and wear loose clothing that flutters. If you do it right, you create your own breeze as you sashay. Habsburg opened a cooling station in the elementary school for the relief of senior citizens and those who lack access to air conditioning. Bud Howitzer, who lives in an apartment with an oscillating electric fan, visited briefly and groused. It's cooler here with the high ceilings, but the furniture is small. Try sitting at one of these little desks with your knees in your stomach. Besides, I never liked school. People retreated underground. Churches opened their basement recreation space to anyone regardless of religious affiliation. Paraclete Catholic was a popular spot to cool off as a refugee brought his guitar. Wesley Grubb entertained the crowd with old-style picking, folk songs, and some original tunes. I'm a Methodist, but when you're hot, he said. The window unit in the little shack I rent can't cope with weather like this. Music won't drop the temperature or dry you off, but it helps you forget you're cooking in your own juice. Urban forestry. Floyd Puffenbarger stepped on the front porch on a crisp autumn morning to check the weather and see if the bird feeder needed refilling. He saw 3 strangers in cargo shorts, work boots, and black T-shirts digging a hole in the lawn. Beside the hole lay a small deciduous tree, its roots wrapped in a burlap ball with 3 wooden stakes and a hank of cotton rope. The tree had spiky balls like Christmas tree ornaments from outer space, he recalled. A lifelong resident of Habsburg, Puffenbarger did not recognize any of the 3. And what was printed on the black T-shirts? I hate to jump to conclusions, he said, or rush into the fray without a clear idea of the pros and cons. I'm a deliberate man, so I watched without saying anything. Intent on their task, the diggers spoke to each other in low murmurs and grunts. They did not notice him standing a few feet away. He was so engrossed in the scene unfolding before his eyes, he forgot to drink from the mug he was holding, and the coffee got cold. Now, if there's one thing I hate, it's cold coffee, Puffenbarger said. Unaware of the passage of time, he raised the mug to his lips, took in a mouthful, and spat it over the porch rail. The sound got the attention of the diggers, who looked up in surprise. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked. "Planting a new tree," said a woman in her 30s, evidently the ringleader. In good physical shape, she wore a ball cap like her accomplices, 2 young men who could have been her sons. "Who are you?" "We're volunteers for the Tree Huggers of Virginia. I am Gail Coles from the People's Bank. These 2 are Sean and Troy." The young men leaned on their shovels. Like Gail Coles, they were fit and muscular, but Puffenbarger realized they did not resemble her and were too old to be her sons. A gay couple? The situation might escalate, and 3 against 1 was bad odds. Floyd summoned his wife Mavis, who joined him on the porch. "Who told you to plant a tree in our yard?" she asked. "Thova sent us," Gail replied. "What on earth is Thova?" "It's an acronym. Floyd, what do you know about this?" Gail jumped in. Thova promotes the maintenance and increase of leaf canopy on city streets, part of the campaign for urban forestry. At no cost to the homeowner, it provides plant material, labor, and a 1-year checkup on the health of the tree. "If we want a tree, we'll buy it and plant it ourselves," Mavis said. Is this 705 Oak Street? Gail consulted a spreadsheet on her mobile device. Chestnut, Mavis said. The two young men exchanged a significant look, as if to say, I told you. These streets named for trees all look alike, Gail said. They do not, Mavis said. Now fill in that hole, replace the sod, and make it look like you never set foot on our property. Are you sure? Gail wheedled. Sweet gum is a native species. I wouldn't plant it there, Mavis said with asperity. Come to think of it, I wouldn't plant a sweet gum anywhere. Farmers Market. The weekly farmers market on Saturday morning provides town dwellers a way to buy fresh produce, support local growers, and meet the people who raise and catch the food. Held on the vacant site of the Hotel Shenandoah and run by the property owner, the market touts itself as an alternative to bland, prepackaged factory food. Yet prices are higher than in a supermarket. Local growers come from far afield, and much of what is offered for sale is hardly fresh produce. Rosemary Wicker manages the farmers market. In overalls and headscarf, she is brusque. Free enterprise means just that. Sellers pay rent for a stall, and they follow guidelines on trash and hours of operation. So long as it's clean and meets FDA standards, they can sell whatever they want. Nobody says you have to buy it. Cecilia Gross, who serves on the town council, which licenses this special use of private property, defends the market. What started as a bunch of tailgate displays and bushel baskets of squash, string beans, carrots, tomatoes, lettuce, and corn has evolved over the years. You see heirloom varieties, farm-raised fish, freshly slaughtered meat, and fancy baked goods. People come for ethnic foods and specialties that grocery stores don't stock. They also come for the social occasion, to chat over coffee and a blueberry scone, meet friends and neighbors, and catch up on gossip. Some people shop for gifts. There's always a birthday or a holiday on the horizon. Handicrafts, artwork, and decorative housewares have proliferated to the point of crowding out the vegetables. But according to Luke Burnside, a bona fide farmer, dressed in jeans and rubber boots stained with mud, he presides over leafy bunches of radishes, beets, and potatoes with real dirt on them. He hunches his shoulders and frowns. Look around, and what do you see? Birdhouses made from old license plates, wooden toys, hand-woven scarves, leather belts and bags, and things made from beads. Maybe they're made in Virginia, but you sure can't eat them. Denny Hammer stands behind a display of his metal sculpture, small whimsical animals and robots, and flashes a toothy smile. I'm a retired welder. Can you tell? This is old junk that I found and cleaned up and welded together. I'm the type of man who needs to keep busy. Ask my wife, Irene. The arrival of the food truck, however, has offended farmer and crafter alike. They object to the pervasive smell of frying grease, the noise of the generator, and the drain of customers to an outside business. It belongs at the county fair, Burnside says. Or the big city, Hammer agrees. Nanny Good. In honor of the artist's 95th birthday, the Historical Society mounted an exhibit of paintings and drawings by Nanny Good. The organizer, a married granddaughter with children of her own, Lucinda Good Rawlings, said, "A retrospective normally comes at the decade mark. We missed Nanny's 90th because of that incident at the Shady Grove Rest Home. Her doctors can't promise she will make it to 100, so we wanted to give her a big show while she's still here to appreciate it." Frail, white-haired, and sharp as a tack, the artist attended the opening but made no public comment. She stood briefly on her own 2 feet while Mrs. Rawling and others hovered, ready to catch the tottering figure. Margaret Howe welcomed the crowd, many of whom came from Shady Grove, with the aid of wheelchairs, walkers, and inhalers. I don't need to introduce our featured artist because many of you have known her forever. What you might not know is her early history. Nanny Foster was born in Quidnunc County and grew up on a farm. Like all farm children, she did chores. Nanny pulled weeds, gathered sticks, and herded a flock of sheep. This may account for the little shepherdess who shows up in her landscapes. After working as a home helper for various families, she married Lester Good, a hired hand employed at the same farm. They rented land, then snagged a few acres of their own with a tumble-down barn and a frame house heated by fireplaces. Eventually, indoor plumbing and electricity were installed. They had 7 children, most of whom reproduced. At last count, Nanny has 23 living descendants. As a farm wife and mother, Nanny had precious little free time. Without television or books, she amused the toddlers by drawing and painting pictures on wrapping paper, used envelopes, and junk mail. She sewed and embroidered, often working figures into clothes for the family. Few of those survive today, worn out and washed repeatedly. Years later, when Nanny had time to sit still for a minute, her hands were too cramped to manage a needle and thread. She fell back on painting and became the person we know today, a feisty old lady with a brush in her hand and a twinkle in her eye. Surrounded by family and friends, the artist raised a gnarled hand to acknowledge their applause. Mrs. Rawling unfolded a girl's apron, embroidered with flowers, birds, and insects. Hidden in a drawer, the colors were still bright and the fabric untorn. Good was surprised to see it after so many years. She nodded in approval as Mrs. Rawling spoke. Nanny Good is what art critics call a primitive or folk artist. Her subjects are scenes of country life in days gone by. Barefoot boys in overalls, girls in gingham dresses, barns and farmyards, busy chickens and lazy dogs, pastures and orchards, herds of dairy cattle, a sunflower drooping over a picket fence. The style is simple without perspective or proportion. There are no shadows in Nanny Good's world. Yet not all is sweetness and light. In this canvas, for example, you can see a cat tearing a wing off a sparrow. At the edge of the blue sky over here, you see a mass of storm clouds, and this little boy is unhappy, with his bare red bottom and the birch rod flung on the ground at his feet. I would call Nanny a realist, unfettered by rules, even the law of gravity.